What's up, amazing nerds? Welcome to Adulting 101, lesson 3. We're talking about budgeting. And this time I'm throwing it to an expert, Tiffany Aliche, the Budgetnista. She's amazing. Look her up on YouTube. I have her book. And so we're going to be going through one of her kind of like intros to budgeting. And it's focusing on a 1 week budget. And you're going to create a list and things like that. So I'm going to walk you through the process. And the reason that we're doing this, because we always start with the why, is because money matters. Money, the way you view money, the way you treat money is going to affect what opportunities you have in life and whether or not your money reflects your values. And so that's the thing we really want to get started thinking about. Mostly because a lot of us are at the very beginning of, making money in our lives. So maybe some of you have had jobs or have been working and you're like, what do I do with this? Maybe you've been supporting your family during this time, which is amazing. Well done. But let's think about like as you start thinking about debt or like what you're going to take on when it comes to school. We will talk about credit and debt and things like that next week is the plan. So let's go ahead and jump into your assignments for budgeting. So we've got this DP, but don't worry about it. So for budgeting, you have your 1 week budget. And then you have a reflection piece and you have a Google sheet. Now you can adjust these as needed. You're going to read and annotate the text and you keep it simple. A question mark if you're like, I don't get this part, or an exclamation point when you're like, wow, that's amazing. Look up words you don't know. Simple, nothing crazy. And then create your own money list and 1 week budget. So look at the Google sheet and use this as an opportunity to have conversations. So maybe most of you probably are not covering all of your expenses. Maybe some of you are. So think about what conversations can you have with family members, guardians, mentors, teachers, and be like, hey, what are some of the usual expenses that I might not know about yet that I will either encounter in college or I will encounter when I live on my own? Because there's some weird things out there that cost money that you might not be prepared for. So you're going to read this and you can even break this down. I've given you 7 days to get it done. So you can go day by day or you can blast through it, whatever works best for you. So she has the steps broken down into 7 days. I love her systems because she was a preschool teacher. She's amazing. I'll link her stuff in there. And but she has a teacher's heart, and that's why I pulled her stuff in, especially because sometimes many of us don't grow up having open, honest conversations about money. If you have, fantastic. This might be just a refresher for some of you. If you have not, then this will be brand new. So make sure you are using this time to really reflect on what are your goals and why, and then be open to change as you grow. So you can break this down if you want, again, or you can take it. Please read everything. Highly recommend. You can even do pencil and paper if you really want. But step 1, create a list of your spending habits. 2, show me the money. And 3, money in the bank, beginning savings. And when I've talked to people about, where should high schoolers start to think about money? And it always starts with savings. How do you treat your savings and how do you treat your budget? Those 2 things, savings and budget. Later on, you can start thinking about, credit and equity and investments and things like that. But for now, start with the basics, budgeting. Now I can't remember the other, and savings. And then next week we'll talk about building credit. So create a list of your spending habits. Do you buy food? Do you buy clothes? Where does your money go? And so you'll have, this is her, it just amazes me, her original budget back in the day. But so here's an example. And if you're just like, I don't know what people spend money on, again, start having conversations, asking people, what are things that people spend money on? Household items, food, hair, makeup. Do you get your nails done? Do you have a car that you have to get the oil changed in? Do you pay for your own phone? Will you pay for your own phone? How much does it cost to have an internet or a gym membership? Heating, electricity, things like that. So she's going to run through. I love that she brings in a lot of stories. And so she'll go through this. So I highly, please. This is so useful. I've read this and applied it to my own life. So I wouldn't give you something that I don't actually use. And then start going through your expenses. And if you don't have any yet, maybe you're very frugal, maybe you're fantastic, maybe it's a pandemic and you make $0. So, whatever. Start thinking hypothetical. Sit down with somebody that you love and trust and do some guesswork. Okay. How much is realistic? Like how much does your family spend on groceries a week? Okay. There was a time in my life where I could live off of like $30 in groceries a week. Those were good times. I still kind of do. And then like eating out, how much do you spend on that? And I do recommend like literally like going back through, if you have a bank account, going back through your bank statements or check your receipts, things like that. So try this. And again, for some of you, this might be more of a hypothetical practice, but it's something you can go back to later. And then it's going to start talking about savings. The way you save is you spend less money than you make more money than you spend. Extras go into savings, and you pay yourself first. That's the biggest thing, is my savings usually go automatically pulled from my paycheck first. Sometimes life happens. Sometimes things get crazy. I'm in a current reassessment stage where I need to kind of revamp some of my things and my spending and my savings, because life changes as you get older. So you take your monthly take home. This is not bad. And then how much you're actually spending. So if you notice, the spending is a little expensive, a little bit more. So check it out. So go step by step through this, and then you're going to have a blank template for your own creation. And instead of using, and then this is Tiffany, she's amazing. I love her. Definitely check out all of her stuff. She's on YouTube. She's on all kinds of things. Okay. So then you have your 1 week budget where you will list your expenses. Maybe you've done this already in like personal finance classes or something like that. But if you hover over these areas, I actually left you some comments to kind of give you some ideas. So for here, this is a list of all the things you spend money on, or you think you'll spend money on. Just saw my typo. Let's see. Or you think you'll spend money on. Now's a great time. Again, start having conversations. Where does money go? Taxes. I'm not kidding. I'm on prep for those. And then you got a monthly take home. Do some research here. Think about, are you going to take out loans? Are you going to have scholarships? How much is room and board? If you're going away to university, if you're staying local, what would that look like? Obviously the temptation is going to be to save as much money as possible. And I want to support that. However, if it costs you just a little bit extra to like go somewhere else, now might be a good time to spread your wings and fly. But do some research and look at what an entry-level position will get you. Okay. That is huge. So there are times where like I worked in restaurants and my base pay was like $7 or $8. And on a good night, I could take home like between $40 to $100 in tips, which was amazing. Still not that much to live on. And that was like at a good spot. So I've worked in coffee. I've worked, $15 an hour, $10 an hour. My first job, I got paid $7.25 an hour, and it jumped up to like $8.25 an hour when I got a promotion. I was like, this is amazing. But I had zero expenses. And then later, as things got a little bit more expensive, it was a little bit harder. And then when I started teaching, my take-home paycheck was $2,500 a month, which is not a lot. It sounds like a lot, but when you're paying rent, car insurance, my car died my first 2 months of being a teacher. I was like, I'm going to drive this thing into the ground. And I didn't realize the ground was coming so quickly. And I had to buy a car. So it's just like things to be thinking about. You want to have, and I had savings, and that's what helped me. So my take home pay the first like 4 or 5 years of teaching was crap. I'm not going to lie. And then when I was in grad school, it's slightly better now, but only slightly, only slightly. When I was in grad school, I had to make $5,000 spread across 3 months. And, when you're living on the cheap, you're going to have roommates. You just kind of expect it. So think about that. Okay. And, also look at LA. How much does rent cost in LA? How much does a 1-bedroom cost? How much does, a 2-bedroom cost that you could split with a roommate? I've always had roommates until I moved, in with my husband. So I've always had roommates. There was one like 3-month span where my roommate moved out early and she still covered out her portion of the rent because she bought a condo. And so I've lived alone for 3 months. That's it. Every other time in my life, I've had to have roommates because living in California is expensive. But then we get to, you're close to the sand. So that helps. So think about, what are your top 3 expenses? Where does your money primarily go? It seems like for me, my money primarily goes towards food and like fun things. And then do these, and then clothes. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a sucker for a good sale. So then I have to deal with that. Do these expenses reflect your personal goals and values? So for me, like travel, savings, and that's pretty much it. Experiences. So that's where I want my money to go. Think about whether or not, does this reflect what you want? And then for your reflection piece, what did you realize while creating your 1 week budget? So just some reflection, like, did you realize like, wow, life's a little bit more expensive than I thought? Or maybe like I'm way better at budgeting than I thought. And one thing that like I do sometimes, especially when I feel like my budgeting is getting a little out of control, because swiping a card versus paying for cash is always going to be a little bit difficult to regulate. You're like, I had money in the bank, it's fine. But then you don't realize like how much your swiping has cost you money and how much that's depleted your account. So what did you realize while creating your 1 week budget? And then when you think about your relationship with money, what are your values when it comes to money? Again, that's from that worksheet. In other words, what do you want your money to do for you? So examples, do you want it to provide stability? Do you want to create educational opportunities? Do you want to provide for experiences, gain material wealth, support family? What is it like ideally that you want to do? And then choose 2 of these quotes and reflect on each for at least a paragraph or 2. And really just think about it. You can interact, ask questions, do whatever feels right. But again, go for a longer response if you can. And just for some context, these are actual quotes from a group of people that I consider to be financially successful adults. So they range from ages 27 to 36. And I had them over, in a safe way and online. And the people that were part of our like pod that, we're all vaccinated, things like that, they came over and we chatted. And I was like, what are the things that you kind of wish you knew when you were my student's age? And we sat down for a whole afternoon and they just gave me all these beautiful gems of wisdom. And so I wrote down the top 13 here that are kind of all over the place. So from saving to borrowing to changing, job opportunities, treat school like a job, investing in yourself. Find a theme that really kind of speaks to you. One of the things, this is something that my husband always tells me, and it took me a while to really believe it. He always says, you will never regret investing in yourself. So like, if I'm like, I'm thinking about taking a class or I want to get this certification, he's always supportive of that, because to him, any money that goes into investing in ourselves is a good use of our money. So I always think that was kind of an eye opener for me. And I had that by that came from conversations with my now husband. And then I also brought in this Jay-Z quote, and it's kind of, this is like our version of it. It's essentially, you can't afford something unless you can buy it twice. So, thinking about like, are you squeezing out as many dollars as you can to afford this thing? Or do you have enough of a surplus where this won't hurt your budget? So choose 2, your free response. So you have 2 out of the 13 you have to do. And then I just also dropped some pro tips down here. I asked this group of people, where would you encourage them to focus financially? And they said, in high school, save what you can. Your expenses will never be lower, which is true. And then when you're in college, these are the things to start focusing on. How do student loans work? APR, rate, loans versus grants, credit cards, types of credits, how to build credit, figure out what you love. You'll never be able to buy it all. Focus your spending there. Focus your spending on the things that you love. Pay your monthly expenses first. Expendable income is what comes after all of your monthly expenses have been paid. So when you think about your monthly expenses, those are things like your rents, your insurance, gas, food, shelter, like clothes, and not like frivolous clothes, like your basic, like these are the things you need. Everything above and beyond that, that's going to be, once that is paid for and you've put your savings away, then the rest is your quote unquote expendable income. And trust me, I have had months where it's like $75. It's X, but you make it, you do it. And it always seems, I always pretend I have more than I have. So I'm a little slower on the savings bit, but we're getting there. And then when you start getting your first job, then start worrying about, starting to think about putting money away for your retirements. Start young, like get an IRA, start as soon as you get a job, matching 401ks and things like that. But so while you're in college, don't necessarily worry about retirement stuff just yet. Think about, okay, how do I pay down my debt and my loans while I can? And things like that. So that's it, guys. Good luck. And Mr. Alves is here for the end of it.